it's almost like, hey, criminals have hobbies. Is that maybe the lesson to be taken from Point Break? I don't know. Maybe I'm getting the wrong lesson from Point Break.
Hobbies.
Criminals have hobbies. Hello and welcome to another edition of Popcorn Bucket List. Today's going to be a fun one, folks.
Yes.
A little bit last minute. Probably should have thought of this one a while ago. Can't believe we hadn't covered this topic. I actually had to check to make sure here, but I think this is going to be a fun one here personally. Expendables 4 is premiering this weekend, so we thought we would talk about some of the best movies that, in my opinion, sort of molded the career of a lot of the people who've been involved in this franchise.
Right. That's a good point.
And you may be thinking, oh, was it going to be talking about 80s action? No. No, I tell you. We're going to talk about 90s action, which I actually think is the better action movie decade overall.
That's a hot take, kind of. That's a hot take.
I think 80s movies in general are better.
Yeah.
But I think 80s or 90s action is better because they all at one point agreed we're going to do these action movies, but we're going to have some fun with them.
Okay.
And each and every one of them, I felt like were some fun action movies here.
Okay.
So we don't really have a real order or anything to do this. We're just going to talk 90s campy action movies here. I got a bunch that I got written here. If there's any you think of last minute, throw them out there. I'm sure there's going to be some too. I'm going to be like, oh, why didn't I think of this one? Yeah. But stay tuned. In the end, we're going to say each of our own favorite 90s action movie. So let's get into it here.
Let's do it.
I feel like the first one we got to talk about here, this was one of the biggest budgeted movies for the longest time. It's from the same guy who has almost always had the record for biggest budgeted movie, James Cameron, True Lies. Arnie is probably his least complicated role. He's played a Terminator. I mean, as far as his character goes,
okay.
He's played a Terminator. He's played Mr. Freeze. He's had to be part of Predator, but he's just an agent in this one.
Yeah.
There's no special alien he has to fight.
Yeah.
No AI, just terrorists. This is his easiest villain I think he's ever faced. Actually, now that I think about it. This was small potatoes to him, but it was the biggest budgeted movie of the 90s until Titanic, which James Cameron then broke his own record, until Avatar, in which case then James Cameron broke his own record. I don't know. It was weird. But I don't know. This is, you said you hadn't seen this one, though.
Yep, this is one, I've seen clips of it, but I've never seen the beginning to end, sit down, watch it. This
is the one that he makes his wife, Jamie Lee Curtis, does that dance thinking that she's doing it to some other person.
Yeah.
And that scene is a little creepy.
Yeah.
But she was also cheating on him before that. Yeah. I don't know if two wrongs makes it right here. At the end of the day, they both save the day, however, from terrorists. So that's all that really matters. There you go. That's all that really matters. But yeah, that's kind of an intro to 90s action and everything.
Can I go off that for a second?
Go ahead, yeah.
I don't know. Is Jingle All the Way, is that a 90s movie or is that early 2000s?
I think that was 90s.
Because I loved Arnold Schwarzenegger in that. I thought it was great.
Arnie owned the 90s.
Yeah. It could have been early 2000s. I could be wrong, but that's what pops in my head because I watched that as a kid and just ate it up.
1996.
Let's go.
So yeah,
Jingle All the Way, baby.
That's some
awesome, fun movie.
That's some peak 90s. Phil Hartman's in that movie. We lost him way too soon.
Yep.
Dang. Now I'm thinking about that. Now I'm depressed. Thanks, Ryan. You brought up Jingle All the Way, and all I saw was Phil Hartman.
Yep.
R.I.P. to a real one. Anyways, but yeah, I would call that action camp.
Yeah,
that's a silly premise, and there's some action sequences into it, and there shouldn't be.
And they introduced the superhero genre.
Yeah, you're right. Superman or any of the other Batmans before it didn't do any of that. No, it was Jingle All the Way. But they did introduce the commercialism of the superhero genre, the obsessiveness over the toys.
Yep.
I don't know if we see that as much today because things are more virtual and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
throughout the whole 2010s, every year, what was the hot toy? What was the big superhero action figure? The one you needed to have, otherwise you wouldn't be cool in school.
Yep. Well, and speaking of like virtual, like, do you know how hard it is to buy a video game these days? An actual physical copy of something? It's crazy. It's so hard to buy.
It's hard to get into the pre-order.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yep.
So we really have, if they did make a Jingle All the Way today, it would be Jingle All the Virtual Way or something like that.
For the new Apple iPro
Sony
4K goggles.
Yeah. Which has Fortnite on it or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But let's get into some more campy ones. Now, when I say campy, I kind of mean fun. Okay. To me, a campy 80s or 90s action movie is defined as a movie with action elements and a setting and a story that you wouldn't think has elements like that. So True Lies, I mentioned it as an introduction, but that is kind of just an action movie. I don't know if I'd call it campy, but it's a pretty good action movie. Jingle All the Way, that has action elements when it shouldn't. It's a dad trying to get a toy for Christmas.
Yeah.
Here's some other ones that I think are funny, but also kind of campy. Rush Hour.
Fantastic.
Buddy cop movie, but like almost focused more on the comedy.
Yeah.
And it's because of Jackie Chan's action, because his action is so focused on the comedy that it almost kind of is campy. Die Hard with a Vengeance. Again, this is a terrorist pulling off one of the greatest bank robberies ever, but like those two, Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis, are like fun together.
Yes.
And like one point, he's like riding down the street with a bike with a bomb, trying to get it to a police officers who are actually secretly undercover police officers. But it's just funny seeing him with a bike holding a briefcase with a bomb.
With a bomb.
Here's one that I wrote down that I don't think a lot of people have seen. It's called The Chase. This is a Charlie Sheen movie. Remember when we talked about Locke, how so much of that movie takes place in the car?
Yeah.
It's like that, but it's a chase sequence, and it's sort of an accidental kidnapping scenario.
Oh, accidental kidnapping. Okay.
Yeah. So basically what happens is Charlie Sheen, he's a convicted criminal. I think we find out wrongly convicted, but he's like broken out of prison since then.
Yep.
And he's just trying to escape to Mexico right now to escape his life and everything. And in doing so, he has to like take this woman hostage at this gas station, and they get in her fancy car and start driving down the freeway. So a vast majority of the movie is just them two in the car. But there are some funny I won't spoil all the funny moments too, I guess. But I suggest it's an interesting watch. I think it's an action set piece, but it's all a car chase.
Yeah.
But it's got funny moments.
Interesting.
90s camp. That's kind of what I mean by that.
Yep.
Some other campy ones. I wrote some other down here that are good action movies, but I just want to focus on the campy ones here. I want to be in a fun mood today.
Yeah.
We're recording this on a Monday. By the time you see this, it's a Thursday.
Yeah.
But it's a Monday. It's just no one's in a good mood on a Monday. So I might just check out some of these when I get home. Is this maybe the most quintessential 90s camp? Speed.
Oh, one of the top. It's got to be.
It's got to
be one of the top films.
It's an action sequence taking place on a residential bus.
Yes. You can't go below 55 miles an hour.
I know. And they jump the bus.
Yeah.
And it's Sandra Bullock driving it. I don't know if there is a more 90s action movie. Keanu Reeves doing action stunts on a bus. Like, this is truly the definition of 90s camp. An action set piece on something that is not meant to be an action set piece. A bus.
I loved it. It was such a good movie. I watched that. What year did that come out? Like 96?
It was probably around the same time, yeah. But
I watched it very soon after it came out, and it was awesome. I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
94.
94? Yeah.
So at this point, we're a few years into Keanu Reeves' 90s renaissance, if you will. Because there was the 90s where he was big, and then I guess wasn't as big in the 2000s, at least in my opinion. And then you had John Wick and the new Keanu-sance reemerged. It's awesome to see an actor not only have one sort of renaissance, but two. It's very rare to see that sort of stuff. But so Speed's a great one. It's just such a crazy bomb plot.
Yeah.
Who thinks of that?
Yep.
That's a comic book villain level. That's actually something that happened to the Flash. One of his villains strapped a bomb onto him and was basically like, oh, he runs like hundreds of thousands of miles per hour. He's like, you can't go under this speed, otherwise it'll blow up or something like that.
How did they get the bomb on him?
They just tricked him.
Oh.
It was a villain called the Trickster. So.
Oh, that Trickster.
Elementary, my dude.
Oh, Elementary.
Yeah, okay.
Elementary Trickster.
You figured it out. You figured out why they named him that.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Let's take a quick break here and talk about the Marshall 6 Theater here in Marshall, Minnesota. Just because summer blockbusters have stopped arriving to the theaters, that doesn't mean you have to stop too. They have plenty of cinema classics to check out throughout the fall and winter months. Speaking of the fall and winter season, it still gets a little warm sometimes during the fall, so be sure to stop by for Marshall 6's many options for cool, refreshing drinks and slushies. And when the winter starts kicking in, you can also stop by to get some warm concessions, both in popcorn and nachos, and it's a good way to stay out of the cold while being entertained as well. So head on over to the Marshall 6 Theater here in Marshall, Minnesota.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
I'm curious if you consider this 90s action camp, Twister.
See, that's hard because it's got funny moments, but it's definitely more, I would say, almost a drama. It's definitely got the action part.
Yeah.
But it's
I don't know. I mean, Philip Seymour Hoffman makes it. He at least thinks this is a campy movie.
Yeah.
One of his earlier roles, by the way, too.
Yeah, and also one of the just great films of the 90s, too.
Yeah.
Twister, if that's on TV, I'm going to watch a little bit of it. I'm going to watch a little bit of it.
That's coming to the drive-in here in a couple weeks. I was thinking of watching it. Yeah.
Oh, very good. I hope it's not windy.
I know. If it is like stormy that night, and it like actually, then I may skip that. But why tempt fate?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's campy. There's the whole cow scene. The cow comes back and forth, and she's like,
it's
"Cow,
another cow,
another cow." Actually, I think that was the same one.
Cow. Yeah.
But it was a big thing for storm chasers at the time. However inaccurate as it was, it did put a spotlight on that profession.
Yeah, well, I think it's still storm chasers still talk about that movie.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go over some other ones here. Bad Boys. What do we think of Bad Boys?
Ooh. Well, I would say that's probably the second Will
Smith.
Will Smith. I was about to say Will Ferrell.
I know. I could see it in your eyes. You were about to say Ferrell.
Right.
I saw in his eyes that he was struggling, and I knew what you were going for, and I had a decision to make. Do I let him flounder for a little bit, or do I throw him a life preserver?
Yeah.
And,
I appreciate it.
You know what? I
appreciate it. Yeah.
Usually I'd let you flounder, but this was an early Michael Bay.
Oh, I guess I didn't know he directed these.
Yeah, he directed the first two, I think, for sure. I think he just produced the third one. Mm-hmm. I may be wrong on that. But this was an early Michael Bay. A restrained Michael Bay, considering what we would get later on.
Yes.
Especially when you compare this to Bad Boys 2. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. This, I'm trying to think. He was still part of Fresh Prince when this movie came out, didn't he?
I think this was kind of the latter
Would have been pretty close, right?
Yeah.
Keep talking.
But it's definitely more of a character shift. I mean, especially coming from Fresh Prince, you're young, a little more naive. You're good, funny.
Okay. So yeah, because it did have all those elements. So Will Smith pretty much checked all those boxes just on Fresh Prince. All he needed was the super action element. Fresh Prince went from was premiered in 1990 and went for 6 seasons, so from 1990 to 1996. Bad Boys 1995. So yes,
right.
He was he was probably starting that movie career right as the show was kind of
last season or two. Yeah.
Final one I want to talk about here: Point Break. And no, I'm not talking about the remake. Screw that remake. Patrick Swayze forever. Another guy we lost way too soon. There we go. Just Swayze and Hartman. This episode goes out to Swayze and Hartman. You have an FBI agent hunting down these bank robbers. And what are the bank robbers? They're extreme surfers.
Yeah.
It makes no sense, but I love it. Because usually they would make it so... They would make this crazy extreme sport something that would be relevant to the bank robbery, like a skill they would need to do the bank robbery, like Fast and Furious. They pull off these heists because they're good drivers, so they're very driving-focused heists. it's almost like if you took the Fast and Furious franchise, made them good drivers, but they all hijacked boats.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why would they be surfers? But in a weird way, it humanizes them.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like, hey, criminals have hobbies. Is that maybe the lesson to be taken from Point Break? I don't know. Maybe I'm getting the wrong lesson from Point Break.
Hobbies.
Criminals have hobbies. I don't know.
That's funny.
Yeah, you got Swayze, you got Reeves here. Also part of the Reeves-essence of the 90s and everything. Mm-hmm. Although arguably one of his worst performances. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not one of my favorites of his.
I am an FBI agent. That is not too far from how he says it.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Any others you want to talk about or thought of as we're sitting
I just have my favorite one that I want to talk about.
You want to talk about your favorite one? All right, well then kick us off. Favorite action movie of the 90s.
My favorite action movie of the 90s. I'm going with a movie. I don't know if you've seen it or not. It's called Three Ninjas. It is like, I would say, a kind of a spinoff of Karate Kid. It's got three young boys that I loved this movie when I was a kid. I watched it a million times, rented it from the movie gallery, wherever. But they actually have three of them. Hulk Hogan's in the third one, and it's super funny. But the first
what was with Hulk Hogan invading sequels?
Yeah.
You had this, Rocky 3, Gremlins 2.
Yeah.
He just always showed up in the sequels.
Okay. But no, it really kind of got me interested in Taekwondo, because I think that's what they practiced in there. They got to wear cool masks and had like colored jumpsuits. So like it was a little stretch from Karate Kid, but way more in the cheesy, campy kid ninja side. But as like a super young kid, because I think it came out in 1990 or 1992. So as a young kid, it was like, this is really funny. And I just loved it. I loved it.
You know, looking at some of our toys here, I got Toy Story. Those movies came out in the 90s. Would that be considered a campy action?
What year did the first Toy Story come out?
First Toy Story came out in 1995.
Yeah, I think that was the first film I watched in a movie theater.
Wow, hey, fun fact.
Yep. I'm pretty sure that's what. And my parents said I just kept asking for the remote to turn it down because it was too loud for me. I kept asking for the remote to turn it down.
That's funny. I can see you doing that. Yeah. Toy Story isn't actually my answer. It is Point Break. It is Point Break. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Keanu isn't great in it, but for how bad Keanu is, Swayze picks up the slack. You have the President's Men bank robberies. You have the part where he screams in the air, something they make fun of in Hot Fuzz. Yeah. Where he's like, have you ever screamed in the air and shot your gun into the air or something like that? He's like, no, I've never done that. And then later on in the movie, he just does that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is peak 90s camp for me, mainly because of Swayze. Mainly because, again, it's surfers doing on-land bank robberies.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah. There's no reason for
that would never, yeah.
But it's awesome. And if you are not in love with this movie by the opening sequence where they're doing that gun training in the pouring rain, which I'm not even a gun expert, but I don't think that's safe for anyone, by the way. I don't know. If you're not in love by that scene, you're just not going to like this movie. So that's mine. I could talk about Point Break all day. I might just go watch it when I go home tonight.
There you go.
That'd be a good thing to do. But we're not done talking about action here. Let's move on to the weekly preview. Friday, September 22nd is the day we are talking about in question here. Expendables 4 or Expendables. This one's coming to theaters here. Yeah, Kirk, can you just... camera on me here quick. I got a message I got to say to Hollywood very quick here. So before we get into this movie, message to Hollywood. Stop putting numbers in your titles. It's not clever and it's no longer funny and it's confusing and it's hard to type out. Spell check keeps thinking it's wrong. IMDb, I had to spell it specifically. It's no longer funny. Also, 4 does not look like an A. We thought we learned this with Fan 4 Stick. We didn't. And now we're doing it with Expendables. It's Expendables 4. Just call it Expendables 4. It's not funny. It's not cheeky. It's none of that.
Yep. You are not 10-year-olds on Xbox Live.
It looks like something a 10-year-old would do.
That like, you see, I put this A instead, or put this 4 instead of an A, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Or I put this S or 8 instead of an S. Oh, I'm so funny.
Yeah. All right.
Halo Mountain Dew.
All right, now back to our regularly scheduled recommending. Thank you for letting me get that out there. I'm sure Hollywood is listening. Stallone, Statham, Lundgren, they're back in this R-rated film with a bunch of new recruits doing R-rated action in a classic shoot-'em-up R-rated story. In case I forgot to mention, this movie is rated R.
It's rated R.
Yeah,
that's right.
Did you get all that? Everyone got that?
Have they all been rated R?
No. And this is the reason why they were so big on that with this fourth one. Mm-hmm. The first two were. Third one was PG-13, and I'm not sure which trailer you watched. The one I watched, the entire trailer was basically just saying, we heard you loud and clear that you didn't like the PG-13 of the third one. Well, this one is rated R. I'll have to send you the one I saw, because literally, I can't even tell you the story. Yeah. I can't tell you the villain. I can barely tell you the characters in it, because all it literally was just them reminding us, don't worry, this one is rated R. Perfect. And just in case you were wondering, here's a very graphic shot of something rated R happening. Oh, and by the way, here's the word R, but the R in the word R has the red R. Exactly. Yeah.
Sweet.
So, I really can't tell you much about the story here. All I could say is this movie's rated R. If you've seen the first two, you know what you're getting into with this one. If you saw the third one, and that was your only one you've seen, you don't know what you're getting into with this one.
Yep.
That's all I can tell you.
Yeah. I'm pumped. I like them. They're fun. They're cheesy. They're cool. It'll be fun.
Impacting local and regional communities.
Building connections with peers, professors, and community members.
Collaboration with like-minded individuals.
Opportunities to make a difference both in and outside of the classroom.
Experiential learning.
Student-led organizations and projects.
Find out more on the upcoming podcast series focused on the Center of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at SMSU.
All right, also coming out here this weekend, It Lives Inside. This one is also coming to theaters. I don't know. I'm out of what I can say about horror movies. It's another demon.
And that's the thing. We're just the end of September,
middle of September.
We have a lot more horror movies coming out before the end of October.
I'm sure this movie is going to be good. There's nothing about it that says it doesn't look good. Any other year, I'd probably have more to say about it.
Yeah. No, I think it's another. I don't know if this is an urban legend or a folk tale from another culture. Because the trailer I watched didn't really get into it too much. I think it tried to, but I just didn't pick up on it right away. But yeah, it's a demon that likes to torture you before it kills you.
Just like all the other demons.
Just like all good.
We're getting to the point where horror movies are almost like rom-coms for me right now. It's like I've said what I need to say. My opinion on them haven't really changed.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting into at this point.
And there's going to be some really good ones, like the new Exorcist coming out. It's going to be awesome. And
you're setting yourself up with so much hype.
I want this movie to be so good.
I know, and I don't
good.
I don't want you to be disappointed, but it feels like you're setting yourself up for so much hype.
Maybe I'll have to start lowering my expectations.
You need to.
So I can just
this is going to be a terrible movie. It's going to suck.
Yeah, it's gonna
worst movie ever.
Why are they doing this?
Yeah.
Why are they doing this?
Let's keep moving along here. On to the streaming movies. Also coming out this weekend, Cassandro, coming to Prime Video. Based on the real-life story of a lucha libre who was named Cassandro. I'm not too familiar with the lucha libre culture, that community and everything, so I can't really speak much to this. It's wrestling, it's theatrics, it's costumes and all that.
It's Logan Paul.
Did he do a lucha libre thing?
No, but he's a wrestler.
I thought he was doing MMA.
Wait.
Or what? I think he was
Jake Paul's.
He's boxing.
Yep, but Logan Paul does WWE.
Did he?
Yeah, he still does. He's a WWE guy.
I'll take your word for it on that one. I don't need to look up the Paul brothers anymore.
There's no reason to.
I'm glad
There's
you know
no
that,
reason
so
to.
I don't have to look it up. So,
But-
yeah. So like I said, this is based on a true story. Apparently this guy, he pushed the boundaries a little bit. So this guy, he goes on to win a championship title in 2011. So this is actually a very recent story.
I was going to guess probably around 2015 because those jackets looked really nice.
I guess what I was trying to imply there is the story is something we've seen before, where it's someone who's doing something revolutionary, doing something different, and we always think like, oh, it was during that cultural revolution of the 60s, 70s, maybe even 80s or something like that. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh no, this was 2011.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of vibe, the whole we're breaking down, we're doing something different.
Yeah.
We're breaking the system sort of thing, but it's, we're still breaking barriers even today. So I don't know. I'm not big into wrestling in general, nothing against it. So I don't know if this is going to be one I want to check out, but if you're interested in that sort of history, this could be a fun one.
There you go.
All right, moving on to quite possibly one of my favorite ones here, actually. No One Will Save You. This one's coming straight to Hulu. A home invasion movie, but this time with aliens.
Ooh. Actually, this movie...
This looks fantastic.
Looks awesome.
I so wish this one came out to theaters here. Caitlin DeVere, she stars in a psychological sci-fi thriller. That may be one of my favorite blending of genres other than action comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some of the recent Jordan Peele ones. He's really been kind of pushing that genre and everything. Here, I think we're going to see it again. Basically, she has to hide and try to fend off these aliens from breaking into her home. Clearly, something's going on. We've seen a bunch of alien invasion movies where they try to take over the Earth. And that still might be happening here. It's kind of implied. But it seems like the main crux of this movie is focused on this one home. When's the last time we saw a good, just simple one-person alien abduction movie? I couldn't really think of one.
Yeah.
It's always a huge army, invasion, planetary-wide.
The last one I would say would be Fire in the Sky. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Travis Walton's story. It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, this looks awesome. And you're exactly right. It's a single alien abduction story. Doesn't involve the townsfolk.
There's one other character we see briefly.
Yeah.
Just for a little bit. I mean, I'm not sure if one line of dialogue was said out loud in this movie.
Yeah.
So this is very much focusing on the actor being able to act it out.
It reminds me almost of A Quiet Place a little bit.
That's exactly what I was thinking too. But in The Quiet Place, the reason for the lack of dialogue was because the aliens were, they had to stay quiet to keep away from sound.
Yeah.
Here, it's just she doesn't really have anyone to interact with.
Yeah, she doesn't have anybody to talk to.
Which is still an interesting challenge. And if you're going to have anyone do that, it's Caitlin DeVere. Yeah. She is so good in everything she does. I think I started hating Last Man Standing, that Tim Allen show, just because they were wasting her potential there for a little bit. I mean, she was good in it, but it was like, then I went on to see her in other things, and I'm like,
what are some other things that she's been in?
She's been in Short Term 12. She's been in Booksmart. She's been in, I'm blanking on some other things here, but she's been in some other stuff. But yeah, she was in Last Man Standing, that Tim Allen show. She was like the younger daughter.
You mean Tool Time 2?
I've never heard it called that, but yeah, you could call it that, I guess. She was in Ticket to Paradise. She was in Dear Evan Hansen, the most recent one, stuff like
Dear
that.
Evan Hansen.
Okay, that didn't need a musical response, but whatever. But let's wrap things up here. Finally, last movie to talk about here. Very rarely do we save the Netflix one for last, but it's just where it was in the alphabetical order, so I didn't really think about it. Spy Kids Armageddon, coming straight to Netflix. Robert Rodriguez is taking a break from Star Wars to return to his bread and butter, the Spy Kids franchise. This is, I believe, the 5th one.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And I think he's directed all of them, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, at the very least, he for sure directed this one, and they all have his sort of stamp, his vibe, his sort of
look and feel.
Exactly. This one takes place where a couple of kids with their parents have to team up and stop a virus that is sort of combined with one of the kids' video games that has activated the Armageddon computer virus.
Nuclear launch codes to end the world.
The usual stuff.
Yeah,
You've
the
seen
usual
before.
spy
They have to
stuff.
go into the video game to stop it and everything. This is not a crazy premise. In the Spy Kids franchise, the third one, they had to go into a video game to stop the bad guy there as well. So this is kind of a return to form.
Yeah. Spy Kids has been around for so long. Everybody kind of knows it. And yes, that's probably the reason it's going straight to Netflix, not to the movies.
Were the other ones, did they go to theaters too?
I think
I only ever saw them on Disney Channel when I was a kid.
I think Spy Kids 1 and 2 came to the theater.
Do you
Pretty
think?
sure,
Okay.
yeah. I could be wrong, but
I'm too
don't
lazy
think
to
so.
look it up at this point.
And
now.
was Flugel, was that Spy Kids 3? I kind of remember seeing that at the movie theater too, but who
Flugel?
knows? Yeah, he was the bad guy in one of them.
I think he was the bad
did
guy in
the
the
F.
first one.
Oh, see the guy.
Yeah, he was the first one. The Island was the second one. Video game was the third one. The one with Jessica Alba was the fourth one. That's the only thing I know about the fourth one.
I'm pretty sure the first two were for sure.
I could see that, yeah.
Yeah. But after that, who knows?
All right, let's wrap things up here. Finish off this episode with another edition of Number One Recommends. I didn't have one last week, so I'll kick us off this week. This is a little shorter one and one that I saw quite a while ago, but with football season kind of really getting into its groove now, we're into week 2. If you want a little bit more football content, The Untold Story, Johnny Manziel. This is a series of stuff on Netflix. I think we've at least talked about a couple of them each. Every once in a while, Netflix just comes out with these weird sports stories, these lesser-known tales, stuff like that. This one focused on Johnny Manziel. I maybe mentioned this before, or maybe I didn't. I can't remember. I don't follow college football. And get nothing against it. It's just I don't have enough time to really follow that. So I very rarely know who the new prospects are coming up. But I knew who Johnny Manziel was.
Yep.
This guy was the biggest rising star in sports, and I do not think that's an understatement. And the trailer or the Netflix show here does a very good job, I think, of portraying that and showing that off and being like, this guy was legit going into it.
Yeah.
But they also showed all the problems that he had already before getting all the fame, before getting all the money, and then it just multiplied when he had access to it all. I'm not going to say this is going to make you feel much more sympathy for the guy. At least I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everything that happened was his fault, but he didn't do anything to prevent some of the stuff too.
Yeah.
So, you know,
it's much more of it's easier to see his point of view for things
but
than to.
I don't think it's going to make you change your perspective on him going into this. It's just going to shed more light on the whole story.
I gotcha.
So yeah, that's mine. Mr. Marburg, what do you recommend in here?
All right. So with my recommendation, I'm going with the new film, A Haunting in Venice. This film is the third installment of the, I guess, what would you call this franchise?
The Brana Perot.
The
That's kind of what
Brana
I've
Perot,
been calling it.
Series. You had Murder on the Orient Express, which was fantastic. The second film, Death on the Nile. Very. And this one was.
It should have stayed Dead on the Nile.
Yeah. And this one, I'm happy, though, that it didn't cancel or stop this one from being made, because this one was really good. I really enjoyed this. The scares were great. The like we kind of talked about, the actual mystery of who done it was very good. It kept you changing throughout the film, which I thought the second one, I figured it out right away. And I just had to wait till the end to see if I was right. And I got lucky or they did a really bad job. I don't know. But the first one was great, and this last one was great. Yeah, I loved it. It was great. Kenneth Branagh did great. He did some weird things we kind of talked about, some unique things with his because he was directing this. Did he direct the first two as well?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely taking more chances and kind of playing around in the horror genre, which I thought was kind of cool. So definitely check it out.
Well, that's going to do it for us here on this episode of Popcorn Bucket List. Be sure to head on over to the Marshall 6 Theater here in Marshall, Minnesota to check out some of the movies we talked about on this episode, as well as some remaining summer blockbusters. Some of them are really sticking around, still making some money. So you got last chances to see some of them here.
Last chance you.
For myself and Ryan Marburg, I'd like to thank you so much for watching, and we will see you at the movies.